On a windswept evening in May 2003, a simple but dignified ceremony was held at Watchtree. It marked the end of a dark chapter in the history of this place, and it dedicated the site to a brighter and a better future. These people knew all about the foot and mouth crisis of 2001. Many of them had animals slaughtered and buried here. They came to honour the memory of those animals. But they also wanted to move on, to witness the transformation of this place into a nature reserve, where all life is protected and valued, where the minute miracles of the natural world are cherished, observed and nurtured for years to come. This is the story of Watchtree Nature Reserve, and how a place synonymous with death and the tragedy of foot and mouth is now a celebration of life itself. The site covers 83 hectares or 205 acres of land forming part of the Solway Plain. To the north and west lies the Solway estuary itself, to the south the northern fells of the Lake District. Originally the land was a farm, Watchtree Farm, and we'll be telling you more about that later. The Second World War brought many changes to Britain's countryside. Here the land at Watchtree was taken over by the RAF and developed into what became known as the Great Orton Airfield. More recently, in the 1990s, it was developed as a wind farm, its 6 turbines visible for miles around. And in 2001, when the foot and mouth crisis hit Cumbria, it was chosen as the most suitable site for the slaughter and burial of nearly 500,000 sheep, cattle and pigs. But once the crisis was over, what then? The obvious answer was to look to the future. Conservation and education are what this place is about now. The land itself has been turned into a nature reserve, with an information and education centre for small groups wanting to study and observe its flora and fauna. The whole project was led by DEFRA with its consultants and support from government agencies, local authorities, wildlife experts and local people. The original restoration plan for the site included elements of sustainability, agriculture and conservation. DEFRA, together with their consultants and specialists, entered into a public consultation exercise to present this scheme to the local communities.
What came through strongly was the need for a nature reserve. Another element that came out was the respect and reverence that the farmers felt for the site. It came as some surprise to us that they felt it needed to be a memorial, and they've picked up on that theme. So, using ecologists, we employed ecologists to start developing these ideas, and in consultation with the County Council, the planning officer and their ecologist, we modified our plans to basically be a nature reserve.
The long-term benefits are that it means we can, for 30 endangered species, have sustainable populations on the one site that will ensure the survival of these species on the Solway Plain, in some cases in Cumbria, in some cases maybe even UK or globally wide. And from those populations, overproduction of young means that they will spread into surrounding areas and hopefully seed the other areas where factors maybe aren't quite as much in their favour.
I've seen the dragonfly this big.
Have you?
Is that ISIL?
Well, hopefully that's what we'll be getting in these new ponds, is these things.
Our responsibility during the foot and mouth crisis was to identify the site, deal with the sort of construction elements of it and make sure that we were happy with that and that the environment was protected as a result of it. What this nature reserve does is it leaves a positive aspect. OK, the site was unpleasant and it wasn't something that people wanted, but for the future, at least they get, a nature reserve instead of something that is viewed as a burial site.
One of the important players was the British Geological Survey. Scientists from the survey undertook a rapid appraisal to ensure the site was suitable for the burial of so many animals.
We were involved in answering inquiries, principally from the Environment Agency, and we needed to find out about the geology from reports that we already have and our database of maps and other archive, and we would use that to answer the inquiries that were posed of us.
But the transformation of the site has been a huge undertaking. At times it must have seemed like mission impossible, but the people working on it never lost their nerve.
Immediately following on from the burials, the site was isolated from the surrounding groundwater by a containment wall going down 12 metres. Immediately inside that, the groundwater is pumped up on a regular basis, and that groundwater is stored in one of the silos up in the centre of the site.
What you see here are the reed beds that have been recently constructed in line with DEFRA's policy on sustainability to treat groundwater that we have on the site.
This works its way under gravity from the silo towards the centre of the site into the first set of vertical flow cells. The water then makes its way down to a second set of almost identical vertical flow cells, gradually being cleaned up as the reeds take up the nutrients out of the water. Finally, the groundwater makes its way into the horizontal flow cells before being allowed to flow through the constructed wetlands and then onto the beck.
And in the early days, whilst the engineers made sure the groundwork was being done, the wildlife experts were all keeping a close eye on just who might be thinking of moving in.
In planning Watchtree Nature Reserve, we created a range of habitats which would encourage species which have been identified as being of local conservation concern. In the first 2 years, Watchtree has already managed to attract 85% of these species.
There are 3 main habitats here: woodland to attract red squirrels and various birds, wetlands for amphibious creatures and insects, and hay meadows attracting a rich variety of plants, insects, small mammals and birds.
Unfortunately, in this country, every year additional species are being shown to be in decline, and with the constant monitoring and management at Watchtree, we will do our best to try and cater for these species locally.
Before and during Foot and Mouth, the site was always referred to as Great Orton, the name of the wartime airfield here. So why did it change its name? This man and his grandson know the answer. Their family once owned the farm whose land was taken over by the RAF in 1942. Its name was Watchtree.
My name's Joseph Timperin, and my parents, Robert and Irene, farmed at Watchtree. They bought the farm after they were married in 1926, and we lived there until the Air Ministry took it over in 1942. And I have wonderful memories of it. It was a beautiful place, and we live a sheltered and happy life there. I'm very happy, that it's going to be a nature reserve, and it will be a very beautiful place in a few years' time when the trees start to grow and the grass is greening over.
The name itself goes back to the dark and lawless days of the border reivers. Watchtree Farm took its name from its 2 tall trees, used as lookouts to warn of raiders from across the Solway. Those 2 trees have now been replaced with an ash and a Scots pine, and for a site which overlooks Scotland on the one hand and England on the other, you don't get much more neighbourly than that. The project has been a major undertaking by DEFRA and all those involved. Over not much more than a year, it was transformed from a mass burial site into a dedicated nature reserve. It's been a remarkable achievement, and its future now seems secure. But any success lies with future generations. Local youngsters were involved early on in the project. A competition was held for school children to design a logo for the reserve. The winner was the Tree of Everlasting Life, and was designed by Emma Carter from Wigton, who'd lost her pet lambs to Foot and Mouth. This is how she explained her design.
The Tree of Everlasting Life symbolises all the animals that were killed and buried at Watchtree. The roots take the goodness from the soil, and when the tree flowers, the animals are reborn, and their memory will live on forever.
And the future is now very much in the hands of local people. The site was officially opened by a government minister, but it's people here who'll have a major say in the way it develops. A local managing body in the form of a trust has been set up to take the project forward on behalf of the community.
Well, the foot and mouth outbreak caused a lot of pain and grief to people who live in this area, and so it's wonderful to see a nature reserve like this full of rare species of birds, butterflies and plants, and hopefully that'll soon attract more, literally rise out of the ashes of what was one of those terrible carcass disposal sites. And it's a tribute really to the local community in that they've rallied round post foot and mouth to help get this off the ground, and I hope that future generations, particularly of young people, will be able to come here, learn some of the lessons from foot and mouth, but also enjoy some of the wonderful wildlife and biodiversity that will be established here.
Watchtree is for them and for all of us. A small but beautiful part of our world, a place to observe and protect our natural heritage, to learn from it, and to ensure its future is safe.